You're listening to the WCHE Morning Magazine on the Talk of Chester County. WCHE 1520 AM and streaming worldwide at WCHE1520.com.
9:11 on the WCHE Morning Magazine. Doug Sterling, Bill Mason, and Julia Sherwin, 610-701 WCHE. And Julia, just in time, especially for those of us who do not have green thumbs.
That would be me. Ding,
that would
ding,
be me
ding, ding,
well.
ding. My yard right now, sadly, is very covered in weeds. But hey, we've had a fun summer.
Well, there you go. The sign of a good year.
That's right. But with us on the line, we have Heather Carlson with Mostardi Nursery and John Allen with YouBuyWePlant.com, both based in Newtown Square. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you, Julia.
I'm glad to have both of you here. You can lend your expertise to our listeners because, if anyone out there listening is like myself, we really do need your help, especially when it comes to, fall planting. I think this is something that it's not really often talked about. Everyone really gets on the bandwagon in the spring, but, really tell us what can we look forward to with the fall?
Well, first of all, fall is such a great time to plant because we can look forward to cooler temperatures, and yet the soil is still warm. And most of the time in the fall, we can expect more regular rainfall. So it makes it an ideal time to get a plant established so that next spring you have a head start on planting.
Okay. That makes sense. What are the, kind of the go-to plants for this area of Pennsylvania and the country?
Well, almost anything can be planted in the fall, but if you're looking for something with fall interest, you're going to want to look at either berry set, which, there are a lot of things like hollies, especially winterberry hollies, that give you such an incredible show in fall and winter. But there are other bearing plants like beautyberry that has those tiny purple berries that look like purple pearls. So there are a couple of berrying plants are great. Of course, fall color is a wonderful thing, and there are many trees and shrubs that give that, like the maples, both Japanese maples and our and American maples that just give you the reds and golds and oranges. You can also look forward with shrubs to things like sweet spire and fothergilla, some beautiful, maybe not commonly used, but certainly great for our area, which give you great fall color. And I guess the final interest, I would say, would be architectural interest. So planting something like a Japanese maple gives you really four-season interest, as when the leaves fall, you just get a beautiful specimen of shape and habit.
Good morning, Bill Mason here. For an annual for color, what's the proper time to plant mums?
Well, actually, anytime they land in your garden center, you can plant them, and we do have some. I've already started to bring in some mums here at Mostardi's. A lot of people use mums as just annuals. They can be perennials if they're taken care of properly, but anytime I would say that you find them, plant them.
Okay. So tell us, Heather, how you and John work in concert. He's kind of does the heavy lifting, and you do the recommendations for what to plant, or kind of a little bit of both?
Well, I think John could answer that just as well as I could, but I think, yes, a little bit of both. I think there's a cooperative effort that really any people that do landscaping have with a garden center, where we often provide the expertise for our customers and help them with choices. And then what John does is he does exactly what you said, the heavy lifting. He does the planting and the edging out of beds and things like that.
Yeah, what UBI does is that the nurseries, surrounding nurseries, and Mostardi's being the ones that got us started about 3 years ago as a separate company from Mostardi's, is that they refer their clients to us. And then the people call and tell us that they have bought a tree or shrub or whatever else they bought, and then we go out and plant it for them.
And it helps that you're right in a good proximity to one another. You're both right along Route 3 in Newtown Square. And, Heather, I'm not from this area. I've lived in Chester County about 12 years, but I've always remembered seeing the Mostardi sign. How long have you been in business?
I think it's about 75 years.
Wow.
Long time.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's evolved from being more of a growing place to a full garden center where we carry trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, and then a full selection of garden tools and gardening accessories, soils, and mulches, and anything you need for planting.
What do you think that people are looking for today that they weren't, when it comes to planting and gardening that maybe wasn't so popular 10 or 20 years ago? What are the changes that you see?
Well, one of the big changes is that a lot of people are looking for native plants. So plants that you can rely on them being hardy and adaptable to where we live. That's one of the changes. But I think another change is, you look back even 30 or 40 years ago, everything was just basic. It was, a few Japanese hollies and maybe some yews and that sort of thing. And now people are looking for color and not just in flower but in texture. So they're looking for a more artistic garden.
Now I have a very basic question, and John, I may have even asked you this before when you were on. In my front yard, I have one section that has been, a guy who knows how many, 30, 40 years, has been a bed of ivy. I hate it. I want to get rid of it. And I want to turn it into a nicely landscaped flower garden. How do I get rid of that ivy?
Well, some people would go through and put like a continuous spray with Roundup or something like that. But my grandfather taught me many years ago the best way to do it. You just take a 21-inch mower and run it across it, cut it all the way down to the ground, and get the leaves and the stems. And you'll have to go back and strip out some of the stems that are left and anything that's growing into that fence that's in front of your house. But you can eradicate that, and then, of course, before you plant your flower bed, you want to rototill it and do all the preparation work to get it ready to plant.
Because I know that I did the same with an area of Pachysandra many years ago, and it took like 3 seasons to totally eradicate the Pachysandra.
It will take a long time, yes. Any roots are left in there or any stems, you'll have them popping back up again, so it'll take time. At least you can get rid of like 90% of it.
I have another question because, we've had these kind of violent storms over the last couple of years, nor'easters and things like that. Do you recommend to your clients, either of you can probably answer this, like what to plant, not to plant, especially near the house, near the driveway? I think of things, being uprooted, or is that just kind of one of those things you sort of don't have a lot of control over that?
Well, a lot of my customers on their properties, it seems like they're planting medium-sized trees rather than large trees, and a lot of properties, because of the high winds that we've had, they've taken down their big trees because they don't want it hitting their house or their neighbor or whatever. So,
right.
People are going with smaller trees. It seems that a lot of my customers are also looking for low-maintenance solutions that they really don't have to do too much to maintain their landscape on a yearly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with storms, I think what you're looking for is the difference between sort of a shallow-rooted plant and a one that sets deep roots. So it would be, a good example would be Leyland cypress is a shallow-rooted evergreen, and it's a beautiful evergreen, but you have to be careful about where you site it. And if it's a particularly windswept area, that's something that can be uprooted. When you look, at some of the other needle leaf conifers or evergreens like spruces and firs, they're going to be a more deeply rooted plant, and you're not going to run into the problem of them being uprooted.
Now, another question. What are some perennials that you recommend that would tend to flower most or all summer long? I mean, I love azaleas, but I mean, there's such a brief period that we get to enjoy them. What would you recommend for something that's going to, have a little more longevity year to year?
Well, if you're looking at perennial shrubs that have long blooming time, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the rose. And there are lots of, there's series of roses now that are more maintenance-free, like the knockout roses and the drift roses. So that's an ideal plant for all summer blooming. Another plant that gives you a long bloom would be hydrangeas, both the big leaf hydrangeas that have the snowball type flower or lace caps, or the panicle hydrangeas. So once they start to bloom, the panicle hydrangeas just give you a real long blooming period. They start usually sometime in June, and they are still beautiful in the fall.
And I guess the other question, and there's no easy answer to this, it's the constant battle of yanking morning glory that tries to just like overtake everything. And I don't know if there's any easy, including my rose bush, that I'm constantly fighting that battle with my rose bushes, that it's trying to overtake them, and I'm constantly pulling them off.
Right. The problem with the morning glories is that a lot of people just, pull them off, and that they don't get the whole root out. Yep. And if you leave a little sliver of root, it's going to come back. So the best way to do it is to get it away from your plant, and then maybe leave a couple leaves on the ground, and then spray it with some type of control, whether it be a Roundup solution or a natural solution like a mixture of vinegar, Epsom salts, and Dawn. And you can check out our Facebook page, and it'll give you the dilution for mixing up that
and that
somewhat organic weed killer.
And that brings up another question. Because from when you were on before, I'm like, I've got to do that. I'm actually going to try it this weekend. How close can you get to a plant with that? My concern, and certainly is there's areas where I don't even dare use Roundup, because I'm like, well, I don't want to spray it too close to my roses or lilies or anything like that and kill them. So what's the distance that you need to keep from spraying anything like that near a live perennial?
Well, with any plant, when you're using Roundup or even that solution there, because of the vinegar, if it overdrifts onto your good plants, it will kill it. Best thing to do is make sure you don't spray on a windy day, number one, and then keep the as close to the ground as possible. And maybe instead of putting in like a spray, make it more of a stream.
And how is there? Would you say, say a rose bush? Would you say stay 5 feet away from it, 3 feet away from it? As long as it doesn't get directly on it. What's kind of the guideline?
Well, you can get close to it. You can get within, say, 6 inches of it, but you have to make sure that there's no wind. There's no way you're gonna move your hand around with a wand and mistakenly hit your rose. So you can get close to it, just don't hit any leaves of that plant.
Gotcha.
Do it very carefully.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, I mean, this is just such incredible information. I would feel more comfortable going out to climb a mountain than to consider gardening on my own. I just don't have that knowledge and expertise, and some people really have it. And I think, given that we're in such a busy society, people are working, they're busy parents, just knowing that, people like you by WePlant.com and Mostardi's are around to kind of guide us, because it's really important. I mean, a lot of people, even like us, we like to have vegetable gardens too, which I know that's not really the time to talk about that, but you can offer that expertise as well, right?
Sure, and you can actually, you don't have to give up on vegetable gardening just yet, because you can be planting cool crops now. So, you can get back in there again with your lettuces and cabbage and kale, and then some of the other cool things like broccoli and cauliflower. So you really don't give up because there's still some time left for vegetable gardening.
Now, and I've got to ask you about flower baskets, and I know you sell a lot of those, and I'll buy them in May, and they look gorgeous, and I'm attentive, and I water constantly, and June we're good, and July we start to backslide a little bit, and by this time, as much attention as I've paid, they're looking pretty pathetic. What's realistically the lifespan you're going to get out of those?
Well, you can have an all-season lifespan on hanging baskets and containers, but it does require constant care. So when you talk about backsliding, that's when we start to run into trouble. But you can often renovate a basket just by cutting back the plant and then getting back on a good fertilizing program and a consistent fertilizing program. So with any flowering plant, they're constantly producing new foliage and new flower, so they are heavy feeders. And that being heavy feeders, and then you can imagine that the root system of those baskets, of the plants in those baskets, is just expanding. And so water becomes even more important as the season moves forward.
And how often should you, in addition to water, because I water if we don't get rain every day, but I probably don't fertilize as often as I should. Right.
Ideally, you can water and fertilize at the same time. So if you get a fertilizer that is water soluble, then you should be doing that at least every 2 weeks, and for some plants every week.
Right, and if you want to keep your baskets looking good and flowering, actually, I had a client yesterday that she has that situation that you're talking about. So I'm heading over there this weekend to use a soluble fertilizer called Blossom Booster, and that will help develop new flowers and keep it vibrant through the month of September.
Gotcha. Well, this is all tremendous information. Because these are all things that I think about, and as Julia said, I just, I put a lot of time and Julia's into my yard and pride in it, but by this time of year, it starts to become a chore instead of a joy, and you're like,
I'm also a firm believer of, if you need a really good nutrition program, you talk to somebody who specializes in that. If you want your yard to look really great and you want plants to thrive, you talk to a professional. So we thank you both very much, Heather Carlson with Mostardi Nursery, and John Allen, owner and founder of YouBuyWePlant.com, one of WCHE's latest advertisers. So thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia.
Bill.
Thank you very much.